You're listening to Pathways and Means, a podcast that inspires and shows people how to tap into their creative spirit. We sit down with leaders and makers in every industry to talk about their process, what inspires them, and about how to build incredible things with the power of creativity. The future belongs to the creators, so come join us. This is Pathways and Means.
Welcome to Pathways and Means, everybody. Happy holidays. This is the Pathways and Means holiday episode. That's your Christmas, your Hanukkah, your whatever you're celebrating, just happy, all that stuff. It is the last podcast of the year as well. We are color-coded out here, as you can see, the second big zine, SJ, and yours truly, Ryan Brinker. We are decked out in the Christmas colors. That's our holiday of choice for the cold weather season. But we wanted to take today's podcast, SJ, I think, to do a little reflection, kind of year-end kind of thing, talk about some of the highs, some of the lows, some of the experiences, and maybe invite our audience to do the same thing. What do you think?
You know, let me get it started like this. What are the colors of Christmas? Red and green, red and green.
The colors of Christmas are red and green, brought to you by SJ on behalf of Pathways and Means.
Thank you. Hey, I think that's a great idea, man. You know, it's been a good year. The podcast just got launched this year. You know, we brought you on as media director. You know what I'm saying?
That's true.
We love that and we hate it at the same time.
I totally understand it. I would feel the same way. I have to be around me all the time. So, you know, think of it that way. It could be worse. But in terms of looking at some of the highlights from the year, weirdly enough, you might have just had a highlight very recently because you got back from a trip where some kind of explosive hip hop culture stuff happened. Maybe fill the people in who might not know what's been going down recently.
So for anybody who doesn't know, right now there's a thing called Versus. And Versus is pretty much, though, bring some artists together. It could be hip hop, it might be singing, but for the most part it's been pretty heavy hip hop and R&B. But so this last one was 666 Mafia and Bone Thugs and Harmony. And so I'm in the midst of creating a documentary called Life After Def Jam, and it includes the South Central Cartel, which was a major gangster rap group that came in right after NWA and kind of filled in that slot. And you know, anybody who knows about Def Jam knows that they're like the Chicago Bulls or the LA Lakers. I mean, it's really the biggest hip hop label that has ever existed. Everybody from the Beastie Boys to LL Cool J has been on this
Snoop
this
Dogg,
label.
Tupac.
Yeah, well, Snoop Dogg is just now getting to be a part of Def Jam. He actually plays a role in Def Jam and everything, but you know, so but it's just huge. So anyway, saying all that, 666 Mafia reached out to South Central Cartel and wanted them to be able to come and have backstage passes and everything. So we flew with Crunchy Black, pretty heavy, and his manager, Uncle Beats. So that's how some of that stuff happened. Shout out to Uncle Beats, shout out to Crunchy Black, shout out to Project Pat as well, because
holding it down.
Yeah, Uncle Beats, he manages all of them. So found myself at the Versus in Los Angeles at the Hollywood Palladium, and man, found myself inside of Bone's dressing room right afterwards with, and Eazy-E is still holding Bone down to this day because his set, you know, he was a Crip, 118th Street, East Side, Carver Park, gangster Crip out of Compton. So there's a lot of different people who roll with South Central Cartel and even some of their affiliates who are affiliated with that set, including BG Knockout. Shout out to BG Knockout. But yeah, so that was some of the stuff, and I don't just want to go on a tangent to where I'm talking forever, but we're going to continue to cover it. But yeah, that's where I was at.
Well, the last thing I sort of want to cover, and the reason why even people who might not be that familiar with Versus might hear about this one, is there was maybe a little bit of foolishness that might have popped off a little bit, and you were present for this event, right?
Oh man, it was pretty wild because at that point,
well, first of all, tell the people what happened who might not know.
So what had happened was basically, you know, there's been a big rivalry between Bone and 666 Mafia. Like, there was talks that basically Eazy-E heard 666 Mafia, got some of their product, took it to Bone, and had them kind of study it and revamp their whole style. So that is some stuff that was put out there. Not saying there's any truth to that, but there's always been some comparisons and stuff between them. And then apparently, Busy Bone has always had some type of issues with them because he got kind of spiritual. And then he was upset that their name was 666, this, that, and everything else. So he felt some other things. But there were some things that were said and during the verses, which ended up having them get into a fight right on the stage, to where they had to cut the feed. They had to cut the live feed.
And to cut the cameras.
They had to cut the cameras, but we're right there. We're live. We're seeing all this happen. And we're trying to figure out why it happened. Basically, what Juicy J ended up saying to Busy, as Busy was calling them ugly and everything else, he pretty much... I guess he asked him for oral sex, right? Because he said, suck my boop. And he said it a couple times. At that point, Busy threw water and he threw a bottle. And at that point, both sides collided and there was a big altercation. The biggest thing, the reason this was still a huge win for hip hop is because they didn't allow that to let the show stop. And that's what I'm most proud of. They talked about it, said what they said. There were still arguments going on. Juicy J's like, F Busy, Bone Yaku, but F Busy. And Bone was like, man, but that's our guy, and all this other type of stuff. So before it went any further, Busy came back on the stage and apologized. He said, I'm always effing some stuff up, but I ain't gonna F this up tonight, man. Let's keep this party going.
And it didn't come to any kind of violence? Nobody got hurt?
Nobody got hurt. You know what I'm saying? It was just a few fists that were thrown, and that was pretty much what it ended up happening.
See, it's unfortunate that there was a sort of altercation about it. I'm glad that, like you said, though, there are situations, especially like in hip hop, where, people start getting hurt, people start shooting, this kind of thing. And this one was diffused relatively peacefully, and it didn't even derail the evening, and it was a good night for everybody.
Man, it was a great night. And the thing is, there weren't no pistols or anything in there, because if there were, where I was at, with, all these Compton Crips, believe me, there would have been many weapons. This thing was locked down like TSA. Coming in it and coming into this event and everything, you had to show your vaccination report, or either that you've been tested in the last 3 days. They had a journal admission in the VIP section. So even going to the VIP section, they still were grilling you. There's people like Freddie Gibbs. He couldn't even get a backstage access pass. And he definitely was grabbing and complaining, letting people know, I'm here with my wife. You should be in this joint. Now, of course, he still got backstage. Yeah. Eventually. But they weren't letting them think. It was locked down. Swiss Beats and my man Timberland, they're the ones who run the whole versus thing. Shout outs to them, man, because these are major things that are going on. And but my highlight of the night was meeting Terrence Howard. I'm like, man, what is this dude even doing here? And I forgot that, he's on that Grammy Award winning song, all about hustle and flow. It's hard out here for a pimp. And he was in character, because I'm right backstage, right there. And he's coming off the stage and he's just giving me this look, how he always looks. The dude is just magnificent looking. And then he just puts his hand out. He's like, what's up, man? What's up, man?
It's like that's so cool that at this event, where there was all kinds of celebration of arts and culture and hip hop specifically, that you got to, be a part of that. And it kind of makes me think about just the ridiculous sort of year that we've just had in general as a team and just as people. And that all feeds into the sort of theme of, today's episode, which is it being the end of the year. Oftentimes, everybody takes the end of the year to reflect right before the new year, where we see it as this new beginning. So I wonder, especially, CPM and otherwise, just what kind of year has it been for you, generally speaking?
Man, it's really been, I guess it's been mind blowing. Some of the places we're at, some of the things we were able to do, I never thought would have happened. Never expected to be running all the volunteers for the Country Stampede, one of the biggest events in Kansas. never expected to be called to run all the volunteers for the NHRA Menards Pet Armor event. Never expected the Huff and Puff. Will reach out. That's one of my mom's favorite events. God let her rest in peace. But I mean, events that have been going on for over 60 years, reaching out to little old us to do different things. And I mean, it just continues with some of the work that we've done for harvesters and the people who have reached out who we haven't been able to help. But the last event that just happened, shout out to my guy Connor England for holding it down at the Bloom event and the Miracle on Kansas Avenue. There was a lot of stuff that went on with that. I mean, we turned Townside Plaza into like a garden and other stuff. And CPM, with this partnership we have with Jobs for America's graduates, over 4,000 students are going to be touched by our curriculum right here in Kansas. And we're looking to expand out to the whole National JAG network with over 80,000 students in 41 different states. And just those things alone, just knowing that we're going to be on the screens of some of these students and everything, it's just amazing.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely
really
it is. I mean, it's the sort of thing where, in a way, years are long, but years are short too. Like, sort of looking back to, January 2021, just where I was at then versus where I am now. It's like, not everything has been some kind of like, flawless tour of successes or whatever. It's like there have been a few difficult moments throughout the year and that sort of thing. But I think equally importantly as the sort of professional trajectory that I've been able to make, it's like the personal and character growth that's happened in that time. And that's not the sort of thing that you should overlook. So, one of the thoughts that I have, especially for our audience at this point, is, maybe you might have had a bad year professionally, maybe you had a bad year socially, anything like that, whatever's going on, but don't discount the lessons that you took from that and what you can carry into the future. And actually, with that, because, I know 2021 was tough for a lot of people. 2020 was just as tough, if not tougher. And it was the same kind of way, for us in our different organizations, how the pandemic had, hit everything and shifted things around. Do you think that there was any lessons that you learned from the previous year that might have explained a bit of the success in this past year?
I say a lot of it was really some of the strategy, how we were approaching some things, because 2020 made us have to look at everything different. Everything, even when we were starting the nonprofit, we started right the month before COVID, then COVID hit. Everything went virtual. There weren't a lot of volunteer events that were happening. We weren't able to engage our board as much because there wasn't a lot of things happening. But there were different things that happened to where, we've talked about Parkinson's law. So when 2021 came around and we got reached out for the Stampede, we had to put things together within about 2.5 to 3 weeks. We made it happen, but it was stressful and a whole lot of other things. But just what we were doing in 2020 equipped us to be pretty much ready for 2021. Although when you get hit with that first big event, you're still going to scramble. Yeah. But so with that, some other lessons I learned coming through was just, sometimes you just gotta dive in sometimes, because a lot of times we could be trying to make sure everything is what it needs to be and everything is perfect, and then we might not get started or some things just fall by the wayside. So sometimes you got to kind of jump into some things sometimes.
Well, that, it's always sort of been my personal philosophy that life happens for you. It's not that life happens to you. So, I've just been thinking about this whole thing that we do culturally, sort of the concept of the calendar, just this idea of it being, this year, one day, and then next year, the next day. And there's this kind of ritual that we have that goes into that, which is, you take the time to reflect on where you've been, and then the very next day, all of a sudden, you're thinking about where you're going into the future, the whole New Year's resolution thing, brand new goals, all this sort of thing. And so I've been thinking about how there must be a lot of people, and specifically within our audience, people with young businesses or people who are, striking out to, dive into their arts and this sort of thing. And you kind of would have as it is, two different camps of people, either the ones who have had a very, very successful year or the ones who haven't. And I know that there comes a lot of discouragement with looking back on a year where, you haven't had exactly the success that you were looking for. You're not to that place where you thought you might be when you made your New Year's resolution the previous year. But with you having this idea of life happening for you and everything being a necessary step in the process, there's not a bad outcome that could happen looking at it that way. If it's an enterprise that you're committed to and it's something that you're working toward and you really care about, then you've still taken the lessons from the failures. So the failures themselves are just part of the success. In fact, actually, this might be a good moment while we're discussing this to talk about your definition of fail.
Yeah, first attempt in learning. It's an acronym. And failure is definitely a part of success. And just because you make some New Year's resolutions doesn't mean that you'll always reach them. But what it does, it puts an aim out there. You're aiming towards something. And as long as you're doing that, you're going to go a lot further than if you wasn't aiming at nothing.
Yep.
So don't get discouraged about your year you may have had if it hasn't been good. Just look to see what you learned during that year and what you might do better. Like even myself, I want to make sure in all my communications, that I'm doing it in a way to where it's loving. I don't want to get in a rush because I'm an activator, so it's like, boom, I think of something and I'm on it. So I might end up sending an email and leaving out some stuff in it that I should have put in it, and that could disappoint somebody. They could do this or do that. But every communication should be done in a loving way. So that's one of my big learning experiences for the year. I want to make sure I'm never communicating in an unloving way.
I had kind of a similar thing where I do a whole lot of reading and studying and soul searching into what kind of principles or what kind of philosophy you should approach life with and this sort of thing, stoicism, even religion and that kind of thing. But I discovered not too long ago that I think I've done a whole lot of reading on that and a whole lot of thinking about it, but not a ton of acting it out.
Now, you want to know what I discovered?
What?
I discovered long ago never to walk in anyone's shadow.
Our second musical break of the show.
If I succeed, at least I have my dignity because of grace. Man, I couldn't pass that up.
No, that's good. No, I didn't want you to pass it up, and I know the audience will appreciate it too.
Ryan, I want to say this, and I'm a double back to the verses thing, because just because I had a backstage pass at the verses does not mean just because you have a backstage pass, you will utilize it correctly. Mm-hmm. So, short story, BG Knockout, he's if you don't know who he is, he's the one who was on biggest song that you guys probably heard was Real Mother Truckin' G's by Eazy-E. And he's the one that goes, hey, it's the Knockout, original baby gangster, approach me like you hard mother, I'ma bank ya. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Anyway, so we were looking to get him in the interview anyway, but he lives in Las Vegas. Mm-hmm. So the thing is, this trip we planned on driving to Vegas to get this interview, but I'm going backstage and I seen right backstage. So once again, like I said, I'm an activator, so I'm moving. I'm like thinking this can save me a whole day. You know what I'm saying? Because if we drive to Vegas from LA, come back, it's gonna be pretty much a whole day by the time we get back. So I just asked him, I'm like, hey, I'm SJ. I'm the one working on this documentary for South Central Cartel, Cali Pitts. Young Prod told me you his guy. Can I get an interview? He's like, yeah, hell yeah. Hell yeah. Mm-hmm. So we knocked it out. You know what I'm saying? Right then, minute and a half, I got everything I needed. So it's like now when I go back to Big Prod, Young Prod, LV and everything, I'm like, man, look what I got when I went backstage. Mm-hmm. Like, yeah, I already knew that you was going to be on. So that makes people happy when you are in a situation and you make the most of it.
Yep. Well, so that's the lesson in there is that, just because you had the access, that doesn't mean necessarily that you were going to capitalize on it.
Right.
But by capitalizing on it, you saved yourself a whole day. You were able to, improve the product and take a situation and get even more productivity out of it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And it's just take advantage of your situation. That's what I always say, and that's what that was, because everybody who's backstage has a right to be there. So in that area, you got some people who are right in front of the backstage where you could damn near see them on TV, or could if you're looking for them. And then you got some people who are way in the back because they don't want to scoot all the way through people. I'm scooting through people. Right. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there.
No, definitely. Like, just looking back through the year, and again thinking about how people might be, gearing up for the next year and have this kind of excitement, especially for the creatives who are in the audience and that kind of thing, who are, they have that sort of feeling. What's interesting to me as I think about it is, as most things do, as we've learned, that feeling already fits into the creativity model. Because if you think about it, one of the aspects of a New Year's resolution is already the definition of inspiration.
Right, yeah.
It's a positive belief in a potential future. And, you take that step and turn that into motivation, and hey, look at that, you're in the creative process. So what I'm thinking about for the beginning of the new year is that we're going to have a whole lot of creatives who maybe for the first time are going to be launching their own first creative explorations, and they've already got the keys to that first step. So maybe looking at this and looking at anybody who's gearing up to begin a creative endeavor, if you just had some kind of, evergreen advice or something like that for getting started while the iron is hot and you've got that inspiration, what do you think they should be doing to make this last past February?
Man, I'm so glad you asked that question. Start today. Start today, or I'll say start tomorrow, because every day is a new opportunity. And
actually, you know what? There's really something to that, which is if you're sitting there listening to this, saying to yourself, man, I can't wait till January 1st so I can start this thing I've always wanted to. Don't wait for January 1st. If you know what it is already, you're already excited about it. So get after it. It's like they say when you flip a coin and it's in the air and you know which side you're wishing it would land on. Well, do that then.
Right. Yeah.
So you're already waiting for, I can't wait for New Year's so I can start this thing. Don't wait.
Oh no, I can't wait to New Year's. Start today. Yeah, man, because it's like, we were talking, me and Connor were talking the other day, and it's about every day will be Groundhog Day until you change something. You'll do the same thing. You'll wake up at 7:35. You'll make your coffee at 7:37. You'll eat one egg at 7:40. You'll put your toast in at 7:41. You'll go take a gangster at 7:42. And
that's a code for you know what? Never mind. Let's keep it moving.
It's code for number 2. Thanks, Callie Pitts.
And there it is.
Proud put me on. So, but what I'm saying is, how boring can life be if this is what you're going to do?
Well, we tend to think of life in terms of like the highs and the lows, kind of what you would have in the highlight reel, but that's not most of it. Most of your life is the stuff you do every day. Most of your life is the mundane. So that's where the important parts are, actually.
We're creatures of habit, and if you want to change up some of that, create new habits. So like I said, at this point, all my interactions, I'm going to make sure that they're not going to be negative. I don't have a whole lot of negative ones anyway, but I just want to make sure that I'm being overly grateful and gracious and everything like that, because sometimes we can take things for granted, including our relationships. And the grass is greener where you water it.
Absolutely.
So that's definitely something I'm on. So yeah, start today. Make some different changes. You don't got to make all kind of changes. Make one change. Maybe that's drinking a glass of water.
Well, that actually goes back into what we were saying about the mundane versus the highs and the lows, because there are people who, when they're attempting to change something, like, go on a weight loss journey or start some new habit that they've been interested in, but they just never have gotten, off on actually like doing it. People will say, well, I wanted to make 100% progress, but I think I only made like 3 or 4% progress. All right, do that every day. And in a month, you'll be there. It's what we're talking about. These big aha things that just change everything and all of a sudden your whole life is different. That's not what it's about. It's about you make 1% progress every day and then stick to it with discipline and actually hold on to it and be consistent. So don't fret at those little changes. That's where the success happens. You just got to stick with them.
Yeah, consistency over time builds credibility. And these are the things that we're after. These are the things you should be after, because that's what's going to make more people want to deal with you, want to watch your podcast, want to, plug in, because nobody wants to deal with anybody who's not credible.
I couldn't agree with you more. That's what's going to make more people want to watch your podcast, which premieres in the Facebook group on Wednesdays and premieres everywhere else on every other Friday. And you should tell your friends about it.
Shameless plug.
And you can share the YouTube link when it comes out. These are just hypotheticals. We're just talking about theory here.
This is brought to you by Squarespace.
It's certainly not. But if they gave us some money, we would say that with more conviction. No, but I mean, I can't get mad about derailing that because I did it. But just like looking at this whole process, I think that, and it feeds into this whole New Year thing where people believe that come January 1st, they're gonna, it's poof, they're gonna be the person they want to be because they believe it so hard. It's like, well, I don't know. Most of the person you were on December 31st is still going to be you. But you don't have to get 100%. You got to get 1. You got to get 0.5%.
And even if you don't want to start till January 1st, right, on your resolution, at least be visualizing what you're going to be getting involved in and doing. And if you're bold enough to start today, then do that because, life is for the people who are living, and to be living, you got to be making decisions, so make a decision to improve your life, because we can complain about it all day. There's so many things to complain about, but there's so many different things to be proud about and be happy.
Well, I heard a saying at one point that worrying and complaining are like wishing for things you don't want. Because you just speak them into existence. You stick them in your mind, and that's the thing you focus on is everything that could go wrong. And I mean, it's that you're putting your energy into exactly what you don't want to have happen.
Yeah, and it's really hard to get out of what a lot of people call stinking thinking, because that's really what that is. And we could say, hey, just don't think about those bad things and everything else. And that never works because people are going to think about what they're thinking about. But the advice that I could offer is come up with some pros and cons of your positive and negative thinking. And when you're thinking negatively, just look and see how your day's going. And when you're thinking positively, look and see how your day's going as well. There's another saying as far as you find what you're looking for.
Yep.
So a hummingbird is going to come out here every day and they're going to find honey. They're going to find something sweet. A vulture is going to come out here every day and they're going to find some dead carcasses and they're going to eat. So, which one you want to be? I'm going to be the hummingbird.
Works for me. We're coming down to sort of running out of time a little bit on this episode, but I know that we've had some mixed feelings in this one where like we, say New Year's resolutions are cool. And then we also say, don't wait, actually. But let's just say that we're talking about New Year's resolutions or just what we're hoping for the future as we get to the end of the year, and we hope that you guys at home are thinking the same kind of way. What's something that you're looking forward to in 2022?
I want to go deeper into some of these curriculums that we're building, with the JAG network and everything else like that. Looking forward to doing some of these national things. Looking forward to the pilot program that we're going to be getting involved in, and want to get involved in more school systems. Really want to become something to where we're like an elective that can be chose, for creativity and different ways to harness that. Also, we want to get to the point to where we're on this capital campaign with Top Tier. We want to bring in some new blood, including, an executive director and some paid staff, because even just for right here in the city of Topeka and everything, of course, we've talked about expansion, but first we got to make things happen here before we think about that. And we're going to need some help because, like my interim executive director, Connor England's been putting it in for a couple of years and and nobody has been getting paid, you know what I'm saying? And that's something that is just foreign to happen, and all these things that are coming about. So we're in the midst to where we've been getting some good sponsors and people who are really seeing the vision. And we want to be able to, create some jobs right here in Topeka for some people, so that can include a few different things. And just depending on how this capital campaign goes and everything else, we want to really scale up and provide volunteers for the city of Topeka and Shawnee County.
Yeah.
And then after that, looking to see what we can do with that.
Well, I'm doing this because I mean it, but I'm also doing it because he's in the room and it'll make him uncomfortable. Shout out to Connor England, man. He's been killing it for years.
I fools with him.
So just throwing that out there real quick. Way to go with that. But also, in terms of the next upcoming year, I think that, it's been such a blessing to join CPM and to be doing the things that we're doing. I'm obviously looking forward to doing more of that. Outside of that, as far as whatever rocket ship of success that goes off on, which I have no doubt that it will, I've been really pleased with the personal growth that I've had in terms of inner peace and in terms of my relationships. And, again, it's been deaths in the family. I had a divorce. There have just been some things, over the past couple of years that have been tough, and I wouldn't have expected to have felt as stable as I do. I kind of feel better than ever, it's an odd place to be. A lot of that, I'm not even just saying this because I work for CPM, but a lot of that's been some of the things that we've been talking about in terms of trauma-based healing and where to deal with creativity and where to direct some of your energies. And I'm looking forward to leaning more into that. It's the world's most narcissistic thing to say, but I'm the world's biggest narcissist, so I'm going to say it. I feel myself becoming a better person, and I like it. And I'm going to try to lean more in that direction. I'm going to try more to sort of focus on the love and the grace that people deserve, and to treat people like they deserve to be treated. It's something that I've been doing for a little bit now this year. It's really coming together, and so I'm gonna keep that up. And anybody out there who's been maybe unknowingly taking some people in your life for granted, or maybe you just don't check in with your people as often as you should, or maybe you talk a little bit more than you listen, which is what is my specialty. Give it a shot. Try that once in a while, where you give people the floor and you really listen to their heart and hear out what they're going through, because you'll grow, they'll grow, and you'll both grow together. And it's created a lot of real positivity for me. So I'm looking forward to more of that next year.
Man, thank you so much for saying that. And I'm so glad that's how you feel. We've seen a lot of the growth and everything, and it just, it's perfect, man. I'm just glad that it's affecting you in that way. And, and I'll just say this to the people. We was talking about trauma-based healing. I wrote a song called Loved and Lost. And I believe that those are things that everybody has dealt with. This song is about my first grandmother and my mother, who both passed away. One verse is dedicated to my grandma. The other one is dedicated to my mom. But, I think that sometimes these holidays are hard for people who have loved and lost and who don't have different people there. But all these things happen for a reason. Death is for the living. For how do we deal with different things when somebody is gone? How do we show gratitude? Why is a funeral the most sobering place that you go to? But yet sometimes that feeling fades right afterwards, and then we're right back to doing whatever. Sometimes we need to sit in that and change appropriately. Because at the end of the day, you want people to know you love them, hand them their flowers while they're here and things like that. But it's been a good year, even through the challenges.
And anybody who's out there listening, if you had a great year, we're celebrating right along with you. And if you had a tough year, we're here with you too. And, we hope you can extract the lessons from it. And we also hope that you give yourself a little bit of room to heal, take the time and the space that you need, but don't lose that spark, that inspiration, that positive belief in a potential future, because things will get better from here, if only because you've learned the lessons of these difficult moments, which doesn't make them any easier, but that is the silver lining that can come from that situation. So from the bottom of our hearts, happy holidays, happy new year, all that good stuff from the team here at CPM and from Pathways and Means. Thank you for listening. SJ, thank you for joining me for this conversation. And we will see y'all in 2022.
More to do in 2022.
Straight up. Thanks so much for listening. We hope you found today's episode informative and inspiring. If you liked what you heard and you want to hear more, be sure to subscribe to Pathways and Means wherever you get your podcasts. If you want to learn more about CPM and how to grow creatively into the future, visit creativepathwaysandmeans.com, or you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and TikTok, where we post daily content and connect and engage with creators like you. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.